Hello, welcome back to another episode of Vinyl Show and Tell. Just been joined by someone else here. Don't mind him, he's just intrigued with what's going on. So thank you as always for tuning in. Hope everyone's doing all right. Another quiet weekend for me. Seems to be quite quiet on the social front of late. That's all right by me, really. You know, it just means I'm sort of in at weekends and time to spin some records. So, as always, that's what I'm going to try and show you here. So let's get on. So let's start off with first off with a very well-known American band. It is, of course, Guns and Butter. Guns and Butter. There they are. Look, there it is. Right. So. Lots to say about this one. One of those one and dones from the early 70s. The early 70s was awash with bands like this, with these sort of one-off proggy self-titled releases. This one didn't come out in the UK. This is an American pressing. It's on Cotillion. I think that's how you pronounce it. What I find interesting about this, I've said... It's an American band. I don't think I've ever in my life heard such a British-sounding American band as this. I really don't. It's actually quite intriguing. When you think of American bands from that era in general, their roots are in things like soul, funk, blues, and that influence of course, you know, there's countless bands where that influence kind of comes through in their music. This sounds like a cross between kind of Jethro Tull, Fairport Convention, and maybe some kind of brassy prog rock band obscurity from the UK that was released on something like Dawn Records and sank without a trace. It's a really good album. It's really, really good. It's very proggy, but folky at the same time. But it just there's no American sound to it at all. If you didn't know anything about it and it came on, I swear you'd think this was a British band, and it's sort of, you know, quite intriguing, really. This doesn't cost much. It doesn't turn up much in the UK, to be honest with you. I heard about it and had a quick check on Discogs and eBay, and there was a UK eBay seller selling it for £8 a few years ago, so I just snapped it up. And it's a really, really lovely copy. But copies in, you know, US territories are cheap and easy to find. Very interesting curio. Yeah, great. Well worth checking out if you fancy it. Very good indeed. Okay, next up we have... Yello. You've got to say yes to another excess. I think this one's 1983, absolutely correct. So I don't think here on the VC that I've ever seen Yello get talked about. I can't ever recall that happening. I think they're absolutely great. I decided to start collecting some Yello a few years ago, and this was purely on the basis that I used to love still do love their track called The Race. Now that came out in about 1989, I think. So I was well aware of it as a kid and thought it was really, really good at the time. I thought it was very, very weird. It is a weird track. It's a great one. It's still played a lot quite to this day, isn't it? But it is an unusual track. And on the back of that, I thought, yeah, I'd quite like to get some Yello albums. And this is one of them. I've always found them sort of quite difficult to pinpoint. They are a synth pop band, without a doubt. This is heavy on the synthesizers, but it's kind of got sort of funky disco Latin rhythms. At the same time, it all sounds a bit sort of quirky and humorous. Some of it, a lot of their tracks sound sort of weird and they almost do make you laugh, but I don't know if that's the intention. They're an interesting outfit, very, very interesting. Not too difficult to come by, not too expensive. And in terms of fidelity, if you want to give your hi-fi a treat, they sound absolutely great. They're so well recorded, really, really clean sounding, got a great product, not too overproduced, typical of the 80s. Really, really good. So, yeah, I enjoyed that one. Very nice indeed. Okay, there we are. Peter Gabriel's second self-titled record. He didn't number any of them, but this is commonly known as Two or Scratch. I might have mentioned this one before. I've been playing a lot of Peter Gabriel at the moment. Much more stripped back production than his debut. His debut was really, really big. You know, it had like orchestrations, all sorts of mixed things going on. But he got this one was produced by Robert Fripp, who plays a lot on the album, and his stellar guitar work is all over it. It's just absolutely unique. Some of the, the textures he adds, it is just, it absolutely makes this record. But it's a lot more stripped back and punchy sound, but no less good, I don't think. Really, really good. It's so cheap and easy to find. This particular one, this is on Charisma Records. There's the label. Flip it over. Oh, mispress. Look at that. No label on side one. It was advertised as that. It's just one of those things that happens. I don't know if it was some kind of test pressing or what, but who knows? A little bit of a curio. Right. Okay. So next up. So do forgive me. I'm repeating myself. I've shown this album before. No, it's not an album. It's an EP. What am I talking about? I actually did. If you're a regular viewer of my channel, you've noticed I do shorts. I kind of do 1 minute reviews of things that I've literally just played that, like just now or the previous day. If I kind of haven't got time to make a video, I'll do a quick short, do a quick review. Just kind of keeps me in the loop. But I did a whole short on this one. This is by Bob. It's a 4-track EP from 1990. It's called Tired. I got hold of this last year. I've been enjoying Bob quite a lot over the last few years. I've got their one and only album called Leave the Straight Life Behind, so I thought I'd get hold of this. This is absolutely wonderful. It's incredibly good. The title track, Tired, the lead-in track, which I suppose would have been, had this got in the charts, this would have been the single. This is what it would have been given the airplay. Is an absolute stone cold classic of the era. It sounds like 1990. It's got like a quintessential sort of indie sound to it, but it is it's just such a brilliant song. It's just upbeat. I don't know what more can I say about it. This is not difficult to find, and seriously, if you haven't heard it, I urge you to check it out. I think it's here on YouTube. You might even get it on Spotify if you just fancy streaming it. It is absolutely wonderful. The remaining tracks, you've got Skylark, which is kind of like this sort of down-tempo, ambient, almost instrumental, dream pop kind of track, which is just wonderful, wonderful chill-out stuff. You've got a complete remixed track called Tired, spelt with a Y, which is a kind of danced up version of the title track, which could have been on Dance Floor in Ibiza in the Second Summer of Love. Absolutely wonderful. Again, very of its time. This was what was going on in 1990, and then it finishes with a very nice ballad called Time and Again. Great stuff. Just 4 tracks, plays at 45 RPM. So it sounds fantastic as well. Really, really good. They've done a couple of other EPs, and I really need to get hold of them because if it's anything like this, they will be fantastic. Right, okay, next up. I don't think this one needs too much introduction, really. I'm sure a lot of people know it. Siamese Dream by the Smashing Pumpkins. So I've owned this one for years. I got that in HMV on Oxford Street back in about 2006, I think. Back then, I remember they had... This was just before the whole vinyl revival. This is before vinyl really came back big time. Vinyl was kind of in probably just towards the end of the doldrums, but HMV in Oxford Street still had a really, really great vinyl section. I don't know what it's like now. I know it's reopened, hasn't it? It shut down, turned into an overpriced American sweet shop, then it came back. But Yeah, I bought it then, and for years I was like, oh yeah, just a sort of nice reissue. Anyway, if you look this up on Discogs, this issue, which is on Caroline in association with Virgin Records, is actually an American press. I don't know what it was doing over here in HMV. It wasn't in like the import section. Wait for him to calm down. Okay, where was I? Sorry about that. Do you know what that was? I've been waiting for some metal items to get taken away from my forecourt for goodness knows how long, and they've finally done it, but it's set right off. But never mind, anyway, I'm happy that that's done. Right, I've digressed. Where was I? HMV. Yes, I bought this in HMV. It wasn't in an import section, American pressing. After looking at it on Discogs, I discovered that it's actually regarded as an original press. This was released in 1995 originally, but it had press runs kind of staggered over certain years, and this would have presumably been the final press run as per the matrix numbers. So it's become quite collectible, actually. There's nothing to distinguish this from the first press run or the second or third. All the matrix numbers match up. So, yeah, it was a good purchase at the time. It sounds absolutely fantastic. It is a brilliant pressing. The one thing that lets it down is that the fourth and final side is pressed off centre. So the final track on it sounds really wobbly. And that's a real shame. I do think this album kind of tails off a little bit towards the end anyway. It's certainly recorded for CD market in terms of length. It's about an hour long, probably just over. So maybe it could have been trimmed down a little bit, but where it's good, it's fantastic. The kind of doomy sounding heavy guitars just burst out of the speakers. And you've got some, a couple of tracks on there with some nice orchestral backing. It's just, it's a great album. I remember this being very, very popular at the time. I knew several people who had it when it was released and absolutely played it to death. I didn't get it until about a good decade later because I was, picking this sort of stuff up far too late. But yeah, what can I say? It's a nice thing to have. Bit of a shame about the full side, but there we go. That's the way it is. That's the thing about vinyl, and it has all these little issues now and again. Right, speaking of issues, we've got this one. This is self-titled second record by the Alan Bown. So Alan Bown was a trumpet player, I presume the band leader, but the band and album was named after him. This is on Durham Records. And if you look closely, you've got on vocals none other, and I think that's him here, none other than Robert Palmer. I think it's possibly his first vocal outing. I could be wrong, but yeah, looks nothing like him, does it? Nothing like him. I assume that is him. I think it's him. He looks a bit lead singer-like, doesn't he? He's out in the forefront. Anyway, this was an upgrade copy I got recently because the one I had was really crackly. It's not a great copy. This is much better, but unfortunately it had a nick on the start of side 2 which clicks away, but I'm not going to send it back because it's still an improvement. Again, first world problems. But very good album, great sort of late 60s kind of psychedelia, proggy crossover, but they're a big band, they've got a brass section. All the tracks is quite a commercial album, really. There's one long track on the album, but the rest of it is it's very easy on the air, nice to listen to, and just a very, very good collection of songs. So if you like your kind of brass rock or late 60s psychedelia, it's definitely one to check out. So the Alan Bown, self-titled. Okay, to finish off, again, I'm repeating myself here because I made a video probably last year about records that were completely under the radar. But I did listen to this again and I will talk about it again. This album is by New Music. It's called Anywhere. It's from, I believe, 1981. 1981 it is. Right. This album, I I'm going to say it. I would say this is one of the best albums from the 80s that I've ever heard. It is wonderful. New Music were kind of a synth pop band. I say synth pop. They still had guitars, bass, and drums in them. So I would probably compare them somewhere along the lines to OMD or maybe Ultravox, although they don't really sound like either of those. But it's that kind of synth pop outfit. They didn't really. They had a couple of singles that kind of scraped the charts, but no big hitters. No big hitters at all. So they didn't really make much of an impact, and I think they've been kind of largely forgotten. But their second album from 1981 is beautiful. It is, to my ears, a stone cold classic. It's mellow, smooth, sophisticated. Every track is wonderful. It is the kind of album to really kick back to of an evening, mellow out to, you know what I mean? It's just such a beautiful sounding record. It's got all these weird kind of synth textures on it. They use the kind of keep cropping up as the album goes along. It's they've got this synth sound that often sounds like a kind of submarine, the sort of bing that a submarine would make. And there's a couple of tracks on here that they've got a sort of rhythm pattern that sounds like crickets doing percussion. It's really, really interesting. Really, really interesting. But it's just not known at all. It really isn't. And when I bought this, I bought a batch of records from Discogs from one seller. I think I bought sort of 2 records, and I chucked this one in. I think it was £2 as an afterthought, just because it was free postage. I just thought, yeah, I've heard of this band, yeah, bung it in, and then it probably sat there for a year and didn't get played. And then when I listened to it, I was knocked out, absolutely knocked out. When I recorded it, I ripped it made a digital rip of it, because then I put it on my iPod. Yeah, I still listen to an iPod, by the way. And it was heavily listened to in spring 2000, and what year was it? 2020. Spring 2020, all lockdown, and I used to go out for very early morning walks to get exercise and clear my head. And I used to walk down the seafront here in Southsea, and I'd put this on. And I do regard it does take me back to that time. It's a difficult time for everyone, but it was a bit of a comfort, if I'm honest with you. It is quite a comfort record, because I absolutely adored it at the time, and I used to kind of just zone out too. You walk doing these early morning walks, there's literally not a soul around, and listen to this. It's cheap as chips. I have seen it in the wild since. It's only ever £5 if it turns up. I've seen it at fairs, and it will be on Discogs. I can't recommend this enough. It's a brilliant record. Great audio. It actually runs at about 50 minutes, so we're going into kind of dodgy territory on the fidelity, but it doesn't seem to suffer at all. It is a great, great synth pop album. I talked about Talk a few weeks ago, saying it is the height of sophisticated pop. This record would also be in that category. Really, really great. So that's New Music. That's music spelt with a K on the end, by the way, if you can't find it. There it is. There it is. And the album is called Anywhere. Second album, their first and third albums I've got. First album is pretty good, much more poppy. Third one, I don't know, still growing on me. Not a patch on this one. Definitely not. Right, okay, that's it. That's all from me. Thanks, as always, for tuning in. Plenty more videos in the pipeline. Hoping to do some more crate digging soon. I've got a few things lined up, so do stay tuned. But in the meantime, take care of yourselves, and thank you very much for watching. See you again soon.